Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'm Bill Free, your host for this podcast, the Awareness Podcast. And the title for the theme that I use, as many of you know, is called Living the Non-Dual Understanding. And really, this is living the non-dual understanding of awakening, living the non-dual understanding of A Course in Miracles. Living the non-dual understanding is the basis of the title that I choose, because I like to bring content, conversation to the listeners that is really pointing to living the experience that A Course in Miracles points to, that some of the great sages of our time have taught. And my guest today is a great teacher of A Course in Miracles. I love this man and his origin. He's one of the early students of A Course in Miracles. He knew the scribe of the course, Helen Schucman, personally. She was an advisor for him when he was a young man. Of course, I know he still looks very young in that bodysuit called Jon Mundy. But Jon Mundy, thank you for being here on the Awareness Podcast. I really appreciate it, and welcome.
Bill, it's nice being with you.
It's always good to be with Jon. He was one of my early teachers of the course as I was coming in to know about the course. I came in 2006, and I met Ken Wapnick. I didn't meet either of the scribes, but Jon Mundy, Carol Howe, two of the great teachers of our time. Of course, Ken Wapnick, who has passed, was my first course. Actually, he was my second course teacher. One of his students suggested that I go to meet Ken in Temecula in the early, 2000. I think I met Ken in 2007. But Jon Mundy is a guy that just makes himself available to new students all the time, still today. And he has a program that you might want to check out called Sunday with Mundy. It's on Sundays, but it's with Jon Mundy. And his website is miraclesmagazine.org. He puts out a monthly publication called Miracles Magazine. And you can find him at www.miraclesmagazine.org. And Jon is he was a bit of a teacher early on before he found the course. He's the publisher of the Miracles Magazine and the director of the Miracles Studies program for All Faith Seminary in New York City. Is that still happening, Jon?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And he offers online courses very just weekly, and he offers at a low cost to you. He really takes you as a teacher, as a more of a lecturer through the understanding of his teachings. And he's taught courses in philosophy and religion from 1967 to 2008, and he has the school, the university, and the State University of New York at the State University of New York, and he's authored how many books, Jon?
11 now.
11 books. Living A Course in Miracles has become a perennial bestseller for Jon, and it now exists in at least 8 languages. And he was introduced to the Course in Miracles by Helen Schucman, the scribe, one of the scribes of the Course. And just give you all that background to bring credibility to the one that you're hearing in this conversation. And today we're just days or weeks away from the conference, that one of the conferences that I put on is Pure Presence Conferences. And this conference that's coming up is called the End of Seeking Conference. And John, the great sport that he is, he has no preparation for this whatsoever, other than what I told him 5 minutes ago. So you're hearing a direct soundbite of a conversation about the End of Seeking conference. And what does that mean? And where this is going to go, we don't know, but I think it's going to be good. So just sit back and relax and enjoy yourself as we talk about the ideas behind the conference that's coming up, the End of Seeking conference. So, John, when we talk about this this idea of the end of seeking, what comes to your mind with the regard to A Course in Miracles and what the Course in Miracles teaches? Is there an end to seeking?
Well, the answer would be yes. However, and the however is when do we get there? How do we get there? According to the Course in Miracles, you're already there. According to the Course, it's already done. It's already completed. But you don't remember that. You don't know that, which then means that our real process that's going on here, and this is true in lots of different mystical teachings.
Okay, so let's slow that down, though. Back up for the first.
Back a little bit.
Yeah, just back up to the first statement that you said, because that's a potent statement. According to the Course in Miracles, you're already there.
Yeah.
Expand on that.
Well, okay. So expanding on it simply means that what's really going on in our experience in, quote, space time is that we're sleeping. And the real task is therefore one of waking up. So if you wake up, then when you wake up, you recognize, oh, I was sleeping before and now I'm awake. So it's we all do this every night. We go to sleep, we have dreams, and we think the dreams are real. We think these things are really, really occurring. It doesn't occur to us within the context of the dream that you're not having that experience unless you're engaged in what we call lucid dreaming, in which case there is a sense of it. But even in the lucid dreaming, it kind of seems like there's two worlds yet in a way. You're awake, but you're not quite awake, but you are awake. And it's not quite the same thing as being, let's say, a realized being, in which case we think of someone like Jesus as being totally awake, completely awake. So there's no sleeping going on at all anymore. Right? So the rest of us are, if you will, kind of struggling with that, engaged in this process. It's like you are waking up and you know that you're waking. There are many people, no doubt, on the course of this planet who don't even think like this. I mean, who are just sleeping without much attempt to try to wake up or make any kind of changes because they don't realize that there's sleeping going on. That just the world is what the world is and they're caught in it and they're there. Underneath it all, we all really have the sense, though. There's no one, I think, who doesn't underneath has a sense that something's not quite right. And that some things that we're not quite home, but we can't necessarily put that into words. Very often they'll be so caught in the world, so caught in materialism, so caught in getting an ego out there that's big and known or whatever it is, or famous in one way or another, which just that's a huge trap, of course, for the ego. We get caught, then you're really caught in the dream. Now get what's going on without talking about anybody, but what's going on in politics, let's say. So there's a big dream there, and these people, I think people go into politics thinking that they want to make a difference, they want to help, and then they get caught in the dream itself, and then it's really difficult to figure out how to continue to be there. And some of them, of course, when they really realize it's a dream, now I was a minister for 40 years, and actually 50 years, but 40 years as a traditional minister, right? And I kind of went in that a little bit blind as a young man, but that was the only choice I had. I mean, there was no other place that was talking about the beyond for a farm boy in Missouri back in the 1940s and 50s, except for the church. And then you get into the church, and after you get into it deep enough, while you find this is ego endowed as well. I mean, this is riddled with ego. In fact, there's nothing. Who is it said? There's nothing worse than a religionized ego. You know, and then you got thinking that you're right, and other people should be thinking the way you're thinking, and now you got some real problems because you're really not being the good Christian or Buddhist or whatever they should be. Actually, I wouldn't say much about Buddhism because I don't know that, except for Zen. I understand Zen pretty well.
Yeah.
But Zen doesn't have that kind of quality about it, although it can fall into traps as well.
Yeah.
Some of the best Zen teachers have wound up being, have clay feet.
Yeah. So when it says that you're already there, who is the you that it's speaking to?
Okay. So to talk about the you that's already there, in the Course terms, we'd be talking about the Christ. So the Christ is there. The Christ is done.
Okay.
And you are the Christ. Now, that sounds like sacrilege. That's a blasphemy.
Yes.
In a traditional Christian context.
Yep.
But Jesus in the Course of Miracles said, there's nothing I've done that you can't do too. I mean, he did it. He woke up. We think of him being done as the Buddha. The Buddha wakes up, right? And they all, by the way, that's what they all say. I was sleeping. They recognize that prior to this, they were sleeping, but they also engage in a process. I mean, Jesus goes off for, there's something in Jesus. And I've noticed like this with a lot of the spiritual teachers too, that even as a young child, there was something calling to them. They recognized that there was something calling to them, and they realized that they had a certain kind of destiny that had to be fulfilled, but they didn't know what that was, of course, so they get involved in some sort of a pathway, and hopefully that pathway is going to work. I mean, what's exciting about the Course in Miracles? It works. It really transforms people's lives for the better. It doesn't work instantly because we're all pretty muddy and we got a lot of cleaning up to do to get back home again. I mean, to get back to clarity again. And sometimes you don't realize, and sometimes you create even more mud. You muddy things rather than clean them up. But the Course is very clear about it. Principle number, miracles are everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. You know that line as well as anybody else.
Yeah.
But that's essential. But then you got to work. You got a lot of work to do. And oftentimes the work is deeper than you think it is. You think you're on the path. You think you're on the way. You're thinking you're making progress, and then you get angry about something. Oh, where'd that anger come from? Well, that anger, that says something. That says that you're not quite as clean as you thought you were. All right. So, or you get into guilt somehow or another. So then we still got more work to do. In the Course, in the section on the development of the 10 characteristics of a teacher of God. Mm-hmm. The first one is trust. By the way, there's a reason why 1 is 1 and 2 is 2 and 5 is 5 and 10 is 10. They're in order. There's a really important process that's going on there. In fact, it's the last one. I love the last one. The last one, it says open-mindedness, perhaps the last characteristic, a teacher of God. Why is it the last? Because it's complete open-mindedness. It's total open-mindedness. We're not prejudicial we're not putting our stuff out there and saying somebody else has got to think this way or be this way. Total open-mindedness. And because that's love. That's the thing we're always getting to here, where I don't care what the tradition is. Eventually you're going to come down to the way you see, and the way you see is that you see only with love in your eyes. Now, what's all the stuff that's keeping you from having that love in your eyes? Well, I can imagine that people who are around Jesus they were either two kinds. So they'll be really attracted to him, enamored by him, actually, because they saw that love coming their way, and it didn't make any difference who they were. Or we got the Sadducees and the Pharisees who were really offended by him and upset by him, because if what he says is true,
then we're false.
Yeah, they might as well give up. Now, there were some that got it, but most of them didn't.
Yeah,
because he was a threat, and which is why he winds up on a cross. I mean, he became such a threat,
right?
That he has to be done away with. We can't allow for this,
right?
But he knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of not really pushback, but a little bit of possibility from my point of view is that, and I agree with everything you said. This isn't a disagreement, but it seems like, and this may be true. It seems like those 10 characteristics of a teacher of God, and I'll rephrase. I'm going to rename a teacher of God. I rename a teacher of God the 10 characteristics of awakening awareness or awakening presence, that where the mind is beginning to awaken to its I am understanding, and it gets first it has a taste of it, and I think that's what leads us to religion or Advaita or non-duality or some Buddhism or whatever. I think a taste gets our interest because we see something that feels, resonates to something true, and then it becomes this hunger. And I've met people that that it seems to me they started with open-mindedness and then maybe went backwards, because that would have been, I think that would have been more my direction. I didn't start with trust, but trust came along once I understood enough to know by a process of elimination or process of purification that trust was also possible. I think a lot of people start with open-mindedness. Is that possible?
Well, they might, until you get tripped up somewhere along the way. One of the things that I see that's a bit of a danger in the Course in Miracles is that you can become a Course in Miracles fundamentalist. And then once you become a Course in Miracles, it's don't mix anything else with the Course. Yeah. Now, you and I are among those who have done a lot looking at other avenues and fields and people who are not Course in Miracles students, who nevertheless are talking the same kind of language and the same kind of a path. And that's intriguing. I mean, I mentioned Zen a while ago. There's a tremendous amount of similarities between Zen and the Course, except for the pathway is very, very different. The Course is essentially about healing all of our relationships, and Zen is about getting there by shutting down and getting quiet and closing your eyes and waking up through that pathway, which a lot of people really don't want to have to go through all that process to get to awaken. The end result, the end of seeking, as you say, is the same, but the path is, and the Course, says of itself, this is the word is many thousands of different pathways back to God again. And there have to be thousands upon thousands upon thousands because, well, first of all, there's billions of us and different cultures and different traditions and different doors are going to open for us. So you got to go down the path that you can most easily walk down, with probably starting within your own tradition and then going out from there, or either getting deep into your tradition, Buddhism, Christianity, whatever it is, or having a more universal approach. I really think of myself now as interfaith, and an interfaith minister. I'm not a Methodist minister or some denominational minister, but interfaith really means that you look at everything. You don't push anything out. You don't say anything that's not to be engaged in. Well, there are things you wouldn't engage in. You wouldn't do anything that was hurtful, for example. You wouldn't do something that was insane. You're always looking to help if you can.
Yeah. That pretty well. I mean, it does leave it. I mean, I'm just willing to be open, and also I'm willing to be wrong about my opinion or what I think is, because I think one of the mistakes that are made are the mistakes of, you mentioned it, fundamentalism. That this teaching is the fundamental path to truth, and the only path to truth, it goes through this gateway. That's that can be a problem. No doubt. That creates All kinds of problems.
It leads to war. It has led to war many, many times.
Yeah.
Look at the insanity of the Christian Crusades.
Oh, yeah.
My God, that was insane. They were going to go over there and slay out everybody who wasn't a Christian, and they slayed a lot of Christians on the way, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Well, you said something else when I asked you, who is the you that the author or the Course in Miracles is talking to when it says you,
Right.
you're still at home. You're still where you never left.
Right.
And when you use the term Christ, of course,
Right.
Christ is a Christian term that the Course in Miracles doesn't attract a lot of Christians. It attracts a fair amount. It attracts Buddhists. It attracts non-dual. It attracts all kinds of atheists,
Right.
Jews. It attracts a huge variety of people. A lot of Japanese. I've met Japanese at the Course in Miracles conferences. They love it, and their tradition is mostly what's the Zen? Is it Zen?
Well, it would be kind of Buddhist or something. Shinto is the ancient religion of Japan.
Okay.
But that essentially is kind of like not so much into vogue, although I understand there's some revitalism in Shinto.
Right.
Which is more of a kind of a national pride or national interest.
Okay. That would be like the Church of England and the church, being in that church, right?
Well, a little bit, except Shinto is more, first of all, it's more nature-based.
Right. Okay.
It's more Taoist based in that sense, kind of political Taoism, pretty good on that kind of a score.
Right. Right. That makes sense.
The Church of England was especially, it's very much more rigid.
Yeah. And and identifies with a national symbol. Right. And so the idea of Christ, that you are Christ, let's kind of broaden that a little bit, because Christ to me is a name. It's a Christian name that we're giving to the you, to the reader that has never left home. Not really the reader as a personal self, as a body mind that's actually reading text, but it's speaking to the I am presence,
right? That
is a formless, non-local, eternal consciousness.
Right.
That we're calling Christ simply because it's the Christian term that is, I guess, we're using for a consciousness, a level of consciousness that is beginning to wake up to its to the leadership of what we call God.
Yeah. We're stuck here on kind of a word. I mean, you could call Buddhahood or other terminology like that, but then you'd be doing the same thing with a different tradition. It's almost as like you're reaching for something that universal mind or universal consciousness or something like that, which seems to transcend any geography.
Yes.
So,
yes. Yeah. Well, I think it helps to offer a different symbol, like Buddha mind is another symbol. I think Christ mind is a softer, less Christian idea. I like the use of the word presence.
Yeah, I like presence too. Presence is very good.
Yeah, I amness. I amness is or isness, or those terms are less fixed on a religious persona than the Christ. So if we were taking that track, and we were using any of those symbols that are that fit for this Christ presence, or this I amness, or this isness, we could say, how is that available? How is the teacher that's giving us the words, the pointing of A Course in Miracles, that's speaking to the you? It certainly isn't speaking to a you that's not available. It's
No.
speaking to a you that has perception, or at least it has a listening faculty,
Right.
or it wouldn't have anyone to speak to, right?
Another word that we could use is just self, where and we're moving from like selfishness to self-fullness, now with a capital S, as
Yes.
opposed to the little, the ego thing we certainly understand in the course is totally a I mean, that's made up all the way around. That's not who you are at all.
Right. Right.
So,
So I like that term too, self. And then I'm going to drop in one more. Awareness is the mechanism. Awareness is a non-objectified quality that everyone has.
uh-huh.
Awareness cannot be objectified. Awareness
Right.
just is, right?
Yep. There's
And
another
so,
word too. Well, go ahead, finish.
well, I'm just playing with the idea of self-awareness.
Right. Yeah. Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. So if the author is speaking to self-awareness, that's a faculty of that's available. That's a faculty that doesn't have to be purified before it realizes itself.
Well, we're engaged in the process of purification to get to that.
Are we really? Because then you're saying that A Course in Miracles isn't going to be speaking to anyone until they're purified.
No. I mean, look, I don't think of myself as being an enlightened being. But what I do is I recognize, as with you, my foot is on the path. I am headed home. I've got a good guide. I've got the Holy Spirit. I've got this book that I use. By the way, books are very important. Every tradition's got its book. In other words, it's got the word, right? So I've got these words that I can follow, that I understand are divinely given. And that's something you certainly feel with the Course in Miracles. By that I mean,
right.
You can't read that book for very long without going, who wrote this? And and it's pretty clear that nobody, B-O-D-Y, wrote it. So this can only come from, here we go again, Christ mind, Holy Spirit, whatever kind of terminology you want to use.
Yeah.
By the way, you were talking another word that we could use. It's just being. You're talking about pure presence.
Yes.
There's a line in the Course of Miracles, being. Being is a state in which the mind is in communication with all that there is. Just being. That's your presence. That's your pure presence. Just being, just here. Not trying to fix anything or do anything out there, just except to love it. Love the heck out of it. And by loving the heck out of it, I mean, you really love the heck out of it.
Yes. Yes.
The heck goes out. And what's really exciting, the Course says the most basic law there is in the universe. Most basic law there is in the universe is the law of cause and effect. So what I'm putting out there, that's what's coming back my way. I had Beth Gear on my show yesterday. I don't know whether you know who she is or not. I'll talk to you about her later. In any event, that's what she was also talking about. She was talking about help. If you want help, help. You want to you extend the help, and help comes back your way.
Yes.
You extend the gift of love. You put money out there. Money's coming back your way. You don't know how, but it's just the fact that you've been willing to demonstrate generosity. That's the main thing, is generosity. That's going to come back as well. It's a basic principle of the universe.
Yes.
You wish that people who engage in all this cheating would understand that. I mean, there's so many things on the internet now, and so many games, so many spam calls that are coming in. You could spend just the same amount of time and work doing something honest, and it would come back to you with much more abundance than is trying to cheat people out of whatever it is that they got.
Yes. Yes. Cause and effect is the same thing as in my mind, and it's a time-space based law.
It is. Yeah,
it's not a law of eternal being, because eternal being is formless. But in time, it's a law that just is, and it's karma. It's the same thing as
It's
karma.
karma, yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It's one of the most basic laws.
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea that the idea that that you are the receiver of this content that's being transmitted from A Course in Miracles. You are the receiver. You're not. It's not talking about the bodysuit, right? It's not talking about the personal self. That's the receiver of this understanding.
Right.
And when you said a minute ago that I don't consider myself to be enlightened, well, John's never going to be enlightened.
That's right.
And neither is Bill.
Right.
However, the understanding of our identity, the understanding of our essential nature is undeniable.
Right.
And because there is this you that the Course is speaking to is the same you for me as it is for you, and it's the same you for all 8 billion and gazillions of insects and other animate or inanimate objects. It's the same you. It's the I am presence, and it's my my experience is the same as your experience. And if we were to say, what is aware, self-awareness, what is aware of the experience that the Course in Miracles is pointing to? It's actually pointing to the awareness of experience. Yes?
The experience of awareness, but of wholeness, of love itself, of completeness, of unity, of one-mindedness. It's all, these are synonyms. One of the problems that we have here is we're working with words. And the Course is very clear. Words are limitations in form.
Yes.
The experience itself that we're looking for. And the minute you try to put it on paper or express it in spoken word, that's a sound vibration. That's a form. A written word, that's a form.
Yes.
So the Course is trying to help us to transcend the form. What you can do is when it gets to what you're talking about, which I like a lot, pure presence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So this experience for me, about 10 years ago, when I picked up on the direct experience as awareness of awareness itself, as this presence, I realized that there was something in the background of experience that was untouched by the experience. It remained the same, even as it listened to words, and it saw things, and it heard things, and it was somehow, and I can't really, I don't really understand it, but somehow this awareness of experience is always in the background of experience. And this could be the you that the Course is pointing to, that says that you never left what you are. You never left home. You're still where you've always been.
Yep.
And because I know that you have the same awareness, and everything has the same awareness, it makes sense to me that even the animal kingdom, it has, and trees,
everything
respond to weather and temperatures, and there's an awareness of experience within all things.
Every living thing. It doesn't matter if it's a living thing, it's a part of the wholeness.
Right. So let's go back to where we started.
Okay.
Do all of these awarenesses, which is one awareness, do they need purification before they can listen or hear or see or know?
Well, in many ways, like trees, let's take trees. You mentioned trees. You ever read the Secret Life of Trees, the book? It's really exciting to read it, by the way. It gives you a whole nother perspective. They're aware, but it's a different level. It's a different level altogether. It doesn't have the same time, for example. We're very caught in time as human beings with clocks and stuff. Trees don't have that. but they have seasons. There's a kind of changes that they go through. They grow. So all that stuff is there still, but then there's an interconnectivity amongst them. Lots of have going on with the roots down there. So it's a kind of awareness, but it's not the same as but it's a part of the universal awareness.
Okay, so that awareness is what I would call localized awareness.
Okay.
Where because as soon as you put form to the idea of awareness, which would be root systems, vibrational frequencies, those are all form, time, and space-based ideas. As soon as you put form to the awareness, you have brought it into time and space.
That's right.
And what I'm saying is this awareness is not time and space based.
Right.
This awareness is the isness of being. And we instantly lose our identity as it as soon as we grab a hold of an object of experience. As soon as we add a time space based identity, we become the time space identity. So beingness or isness or God or a presence, it now attaches its identity. It happens in a nanosecond, and it attaches its identity to the experience or to the object that's being languaged.
So what we are then, it doesn't have definition.
Yes, and the Course says that God or love is without opposite.
Right. The minute you try to define it, then you're trying to define it. Then you're making an objective out of it.
Yes, you've instantly isness or God, what God is, joined the experience or joined an identity of form and made itself finite instead of infinite.
Right, and that's the way it sees itself. Yeah, but behind us, the infinite, which is what's the exciting thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in my mind, let's keep going with the idea, because I like where we sort of we really talk through some of those ideas, and it feels open and spacious.
Yeah, good.
And the end of seeking for this conference, and what we've, the end of seeking conference is exploring the paradox of awakening, and how does one let go of this personal self identity so that they can be a realized experience, an embodiment.
One really good thing to recognize is that you, me, we, physical beings, we're going to die, and so, what happens when we let go of this body? That's a really important point, because then it's not like that's. I had a profound death experience in 1976. And I don't mind saying that what happened with psychedelics in the jungles in Chiapas in southern Mexico, but I left here. I don't know how else to explain it. I left here, and it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying, because Jon Mundy left, the person left, the space-time being, and that scared me. I mean, that was because I really was dying, and I really thought, what was going to happen when my parents back in Missouri found out that their son died in the jungles in Chiapas with a shaman, but that being has to die. Yeah,
but it sounds like, because fear entered, it sounds like another dreamer of the dream took its place. It doesn't sound like, because presence would not be affected by fear. I amness would be
absolutely right.
Untouched by anything that would be fear-based or even form-based.
Well, let me be clear that was the beginning of it, all right? That was the leaving. There was fearful. The fear part was letting go. Once I was gone, I can't even tell you about once I was gone.
So was it John that was in fear?
Yes,
Or
John
was
was
it
in fear.
the movement or the losing of the faculties
All
of
that,
bodysuit?
all that, because we're very identified with this body. We think this is who we are in the space time. We think this is, I am this name, this
Yes.
person, and all of that has to disappear.
But it sounds like a psychological dissolution, though. It sounds like the psyche was the involved
Right.
persona that it was still intact and became fearful when it saw the faculties of bodysuit dissolving.
Exactly. That's what happened. But then beyond that, there's another dimension. I can't even, there's no words for this.
Yes.
Later, what happened was I came back. I mean, obviously I came back. Otherwise I'd be sitting here talking to you, but it was a slow process, and I couldn't talk. I could not talk because I had blown it. And now what happened was so beyond words.
Can we come back to this? Hold that thought.
All right.
When you were out of it, when you were out of the John bodysuit, out of the fear, and in that experience of, I would say, formless being, were you cognizant of that?
Well, yes and no. I don't mean to be evasive. It's just that yes and no, in the sense that there was a certain kind of awareness that I can't really explain to you very well. There's more like the beingness.
There it is, right there. Stop.
Huh?
Right there. That is it. The awareness that you can't put a description to.
No.
The awareness of experience that can't even label what that was. That is it. That to me is the big glimpse of revelation that even when it happened, I mean, it sounds like it happened in a oh my God experience for you, and now come back into time and space, your experience of description.
Well, then there is more like this just beingness, and by beingness I meant like I was studying the course at that point. I was new to the course at that point. I was only a year into the course at that point. But all of a sudden, the course made incredible sense. And all of a sudden, I could let everybody be who they were. I mean, there was no sense of having to fix anything in the world. There was just this, again, thank God when I came back, I was living in a cabin in the woods. That was very fortuitous that happened, that I came back to that. And this is when I wrote up the description of this experience, which is in one of the books that I wrote. It's in two of the books I wrote.
Which book? Which books?
Eternal Life and A Course in Miracles. It's also in my bio book, Missouri Mystic. It's a little more detail on eternal life because I have a prequel to the experience, and I have what I call a post-mortem after the experience had happened, kind of analysis of what had happened.
Yes. Well, keep going, because I've heard other parts of this story, and I think they're powerful, and I'd like to have our audience hear them.
It's very powerful because then there's just a kind of pure seeing. By pure seeing, I mean seeing without contamination, seeing without judgment, which is very hard to do. I mean, projection makes perception. It's almost like you can't help but analyze everything that you see. We do that all the time. We're constantly analyzing everything that we see. You walk into a room, you analyze everybody in the room within seconds. You got the who is that, and what my relationship is with this or that person.
Yes.
That kind of thing ceased. I don't know how else to explain it. It came back though. You cannot hold this. I mean, I wasn't able to hold it, and I've heard the same thing. People can't hold it. I mean, I guess if you become an enlightened being, you do hold it. Obviously, I didn't become an enlightened being, and I'm not, as I said earlier, right? But you cannot forget it. You cannot forget an experience like this. It's like the most important experience that this being ever had in the context of space and time. And I also understand, it's interesting that we're talking about this because just this morning started writing, I do a weekly Sunday with Mundy as well in writing that goes out to our whole list. And the title I gave to it was Die Before You Die. I haven't finished writing it, but it's really, if you those who die before they die don't die when they die. In other words, that process that I went through, I think a lot of people go through that process when you're dying. Now, you don't have to. By that, I mean, and one of the benefits of having gone through that is I know that that's there. So I had a little death experience last summer, a year ago, when I went through COVID, and I got to a place in COVID. I was 24 days in isolation. I really had a bad case of it. 3 different doctors said I was lucky to be alive. One of them said, you just merely missed it. I mean, dying. And somewhere like 2/3 of the way through, I woke up one night, middle of the night. Of course, there's nobody around. And I thought I was dying. I was again dying, right? And believe this or not, do whatever you want to do with it. I heard an inner voice which said, go or stay. Either way, you will not lose your mind. And that's all it said. It was actually a little rhyme. Go or stay, either way, you will not lose your mind. So I was a choice. And I chose to stay, obviously, because my family needs me. My wife needs me. My daughter needs me, etc. It wasn't because I got to write another book or give another little talk or any of that stuff. It was only because I was needed. And right here at home, in an immediate kind of way, I want to come back and be here and maybe help somebody else transition before I transition.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, Jon, let's go back for just a minute to that place of awareness that has no description, that can't be, you can't really, you can't put words on it. And let's see if there's access to that same place again. Because awareness is not mystified. Awareness isn't something that only happens for Jon Mundy. That experience that you had was a pivotal experience in your life, and I think that many of us have versions of that, right, where you don't want to speak after something like that happens, because you don't want to disturb that presence of beingness that reveals itself. It's like a revelation experience.
That's right.
And I've had that experience sitting in satsang with Muji, where just as a watching him have dialogue with someone in the hot seat, and sitting there for 2 hours in satsang, and coming out of that to experience. I remember I was in Portugal at Sahaja, and I had no idea that the chemicalization, what was happening to the beingness in that was embodied with Bill, or using Bill as the embodiment. I had no idea what was occurring, but when I came out of that satsang, I did not want to speak.
No.
I didn't want anyone to ask me questions or to speak to me that I needed to respond, because I did not want to disturb this experience that was so profound. It felt like, oh my God, this is, I didn't even have, like you said, I didn't have words to describe what it was, but it was awesome.
Right. And I had that same feeling, that same experience.
Yeah.
No need to talk. I couldn't talk.
Yes. And so as we are sitting here, we're talking as two bodysuits that are in we're dreamers of the dream, talking about things. As soon as we're using words and language and bodysuits, we're talking about the dreamers of the dream, the objects of experience. We're not talking about consciousness per se. As we're looking at this idea as awareness, what is it that is aware of this experience?
You keep asking the same question.
I do.
Yeah,
I
you
do,
keep-
because
yeah.
it's undeniably the essence of all experience.
You
When
know,
you ask the question, what is aware of this experience? What is your answer?
look, we just got through saying we couldn't put it in words, and now we want to put it in words.
No, I want you to go back to what is aware of this experience, because
Oh,
awareness
okay, right.
is
So it is. I understand.
awareness is aware of itself.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the true self, or the self that you are, without definition. And so the fact that we have without definition is because that's what I'm saying. You can't put words on this in the sense of providing some sort of definition. Right.
Right.
That's why you have to let go of that. I mean, I've said, I mean, there are no ministers in heaven, there are doctors in heaven, there are captains, there are no lieutenants, all of these titles and degrees and levels and stuff. None of that counts. That's only in this world.
Yes.
And
Yes.
all of that stuff is temporal.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And
So for the listener
Yeah.
that may want to go a little deeper with this content of what we're describing here,
Right.
if awareness just is, and there's no labels on awareness, you're just looking at a kind of a gazing look at all experience without labels, without descriptions. Awareness is, prior to the mind putting a label on something, prior to the without the use of memory,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Awareness just is. And if you close your eyes and ask yourself, does this awareness have an age? And the listener can sort of check in with that. Does this awareness have an age? Does this awareness have a gender? You go right back to the same place of just pure self-awareness. Does this awareness have a skin color? And then open your eyes as awareness. Jon, is this a different awareness than the awareness that you experienced in that description that you gave?
Not if it's pure awareness.
Well, I mean, in what we just went through, what we just looked at in that examination, is that awareness a different awareness?
Yes, because you're trying to put. If we try to put definitions on, you talk about age or color, skin. Those are all definitions. Those are all descriptions.
Well, it's just a use. It's a use of a self-inquiry to ask you, mind, the activity of awareness is the mind of God in motion. So the awareness is mind, the mind of God at rest, and mind is awareness in action. It's not the body mind. It's not the thinking mind. It's not the personal self mind. It's those two things. And when the mind is given self-inquiry to examine, it has to go to awareness to answer the question. And only awareness is able to know, to see, to inform the mind that something was experienced. Right?
Yeah. So all you got is just beingness again.
Yes. Yes. And is that beingness, is it repeatable?
What do you mean by repeatable?
I mean, can that experience that you described where the body sort of lost its faculty in the experience of your of awareness and the psyche, has that ever repeated itself for you?
See, Bill, the thing here is that the word repeatable is something that happens in time. And we're talking about something that transcends time.
Yes. But awakening, in my mind, that was clearly an awakening experience. And I think we actually all live in an awakening experience.
I agree.
And the mind comes back in a nanosecond and keeps laying identity on and labels.
Absolutely. That's why I said when I had that experience in 76, it was like this pure, beautiful presence, but it came back. I mean, didn't come back quickly, but it came back slowly. But you got to do things in the world.
Yes.
I mean, the moment you got to eat or work or go get travel or something, well, then you got to get back into the world to do those kind of things.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, totally.
Although one of the benefits is that you learn really how to leave the world alone. That's one of my favorite line, one of my many favorite lines in the course is, "Let him be what he is, seek not to make of love an enemy. Leave her alone, leave it alone, leave the situation alone." We don't realize that these things, first of all, they're going to fix themselves, for one thing. That doesn't mean you can't be helpful. In fact, you may be more helpful than ever because you're not plugged in to whatever is going on. You can be more objective about what's happening, right? That's the difference between counseling a family member and counseling somebody who's not a family member. You can much better work with the non-family member, but the family members where the real work is.
Yes, right. So we're just about out of time. Right. We're coming to a close on this broadcast, the Awareness podcast. Mm-hmm. And the idea that I thought was something that was important for this conference that's coming up is the End of Seeking conference. And in your experience, is there an end to seeking? Does it come to an end?
Well, this is where we started.
Yeah.
And it has the same answer that it was in the beginning, which was it's a matter of waking up, right?
Yes.
That's where we started. It's a matter of waking up.
Yes. And is waking up possible with A Course in Miracles?
Yes, I certainly think so. I mean, we believe that it was written by an awakened being, right? Who is trying to help us to wake up as well.
Well, see, that's another whole broadcast I'd love to carry on with, because it's authorship of A Course in Miracles. You know what I mean? Because there's an understanding that Jesus is the author of A Course in Miracles, right? And Helen and Bill were the co-scribes of the course. And is Jesus really the author of A Course in Miracles?
Jesus is the author because we need somebody in space-time. We need an image, an idea. You could say it came from universal mind.
Yes.
What the heck is universal mind?
Yes.
I mean, but you put a name on it, and now we've got a different kind of situation. We can visualize Jesus. You can't visualize a universal mind.
Yes. And it's given an identity that we can love and understand.
Yes.
But through its own accomplishment that is undeniable.
Right.
And so for that, I like to, and I love your answer to that. It was so spot on. Thank you. Because Jesus is, of course, says Jesus is a man who saw the face of Christ in all his brothers and remembered God. And so Jesus itself was just a man, and yet consciousness would take that experience 2,000 years ago, bring it forward, and give us a document called A Course in Miracles that would be used, his experience, his time and space based experience would be used in time and space to awaken divinity, that it would awaken humanity to its divinity, that would awaken the sleeping manifestation of God embodied in a bodysuit to a time-space experience where God is experiencing itself as bodysuits.
Yeah.
Amazing, right?
Yeah. Well, it seems to be certainly we're caught in bodysuits, aren't we?
Yes, yes. So this is a kind of a conversation that's a preview. We're not going to have these kinds of conversations, or we may at the conference. But Jon will be one of our presenters at the End of Seeking conference in a couple of weeks or days, if you're depending on when you're listening to this broadcast. And the idea behind the End of Seeking conference is to have these kinds of conversations, to have presenters that will bring a challenge or content. There's plenty of content in A Course in Miracles that speaks to the end of seeking. And I think that that's what A Course in Miracles is all about. It's pointing to the experience of humanity to come to the end of seeking and to know the self.
Amen.
Yeah. Jon, do you have any final words for our listeners before we close?
No, I think that's good. Amen is nice.
Amen is nice. Yes, it is. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining with us. This has been awesome. And we'll see you at the End of Seeking conference. And thank you for listening.